Razer's updated its Blade Stealth Ultrabook with the Intel 8th generation quad-core processor. Today I'm going to review it and tell you whether or not it's worth it. Stay tuned. Okay, so if you haven't been following this story, Razer actually updated this laptop mid-2017. We reviewed it in August when it finally hit the market, and it actually had some substantial changes. So for instance, it now has a QHD display, but more importantly, it's a 13.3-inch display, up 12.5 inches. That was a big deal because it made the bezels 50% smaller, and for me, that was a huge deal. I never really liked the Blade Stealth up until that point. I've always had an issue with Razers having those wide bezels. I just didn't feel like they needed it. They could just put a bigger display in there, and that's what they did here, so that's cool to see. And you still got that here, and it's also a sharp IGZO display, which is really good for contrast and just looks really, really nice. Now, the brightness isn't the best. It's going to be a little bit below 300 nits, so even maxed out, this isn't the brightest display, but for indoors and gaming, it's pretty good. Some other changes include 16 gigabytes of RAM is now a standard. It's also soldered on, which means you won't be able to swap it out. Now, the big change with this version, why we're looking at it today, is the processor. So all they've done now is thrown in the Intel 8th generation 8550U processor. And again, if you haven't been following along, the difference there is that it's now a quad-core processor versus dual-core from the old model. Now, I've been a huge fan of this 8th generation processor. The quad-core stuff is really nice. Now, again, we need to put this in perspective, a little bit of context for you. So you're not going to get a lot of more power out of that quad-core processor, at least for everyday tasks. It's really good for heavy lifting. If you're going to use this laptop for, say, crunching data, maybe even rendering a video, it's going to help there. But for just running the web browser, watching videos, not so much. Now, the other confusing thing with the Razer Blade Stealth is it's an Ultrabook. It is not a gaming laptop. Although it has some pedigree that relates to the Razer Blade, it is still just a straight-up Ultrabook. So you got to remember that. You won't be able to play full games on this, at least not by itself. Razer will be more than happy to sell you the Razer Core, their external GPU, which allows you to throw in all sorts of options in there. For instance, ours has an NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti in there, which gives a lot of performance. You connect it up through the Thunderbolt 3 port, and now, yes, you can truly game on this while you're at home, of course. You're not going to be taking this on the bus, obviously. And that's the difference. This is the Ultrabook for the professional who goes to work, just wants a regular laptop, but then comes home and wants to game on the same system. That's not a cheap option out there, but I have to admit, it's a cool option. I really like the Razer Core. I think it works very well for a lot of people. Just remember, you're going to have to set aside a budget for the Razer Core for the GPU and the enclosure, but if you buy the Razer Blade Stealth, Razer would usually give you a discount when you buy both together. So how is it for standard performance? Well, just like the XPS 13, this single core performance is slightly better than last year's model. And it's going to be, when it comes to multi-core support, we're going to see a huge increase. And it is significant. It's just below 14,000 on Geekbench. And overall, the performance is very good for this processor. But again, you're not going to see that for everyday tasks necessarily. It's going to depend on what you do. But for most of us, we'd rather take that performance than not have it at all. The other benefit is usually battery life. So the battery life on this laptop is not particularly fantastic. It's around 6 to 7 hours. You can maybe push it to 8, which for an Ultrabook in 2018 for me is on the low end. Now, Razer also has a Razer battery bank, which you can buy as an accessory and charge a laptop on the go. But a lot of people may not want to do that versus just buying a laptop that gets 10 hours of battery life. Weighing just under 3 pounds, it's very easy to carry around and just nimble and nice to open. Yes, you can open it one-handed, which is always a nice option as well. All right, let's take a tour of the device itself. So we got that 13.3-inch IGZO display. Like I said, brightness is not the best out there. Color accuracy is pretty good. It's 98% sRGB. Not a bad display. Like I said, really good for gaming, but it's not going to be the best for content creators out there, but it still looks really nice at its QHD resolution. Coming down to the keyboard area, again, you're getting that Chroma keyboard, at least on the black version. For the gunmetal gray, it'll just be backlit. It is multi-stage, so you can control the brightness because it can get very bright. We still have the hang-ups with the Razer keyboards where the secondary function keys don't light up. So if you're going to be using this at nighttime, you're going to have to kind of fiddle around to figure out how to turn up your volume or turn down the screen brightness. It's a little bit annoying. I hope someday they can actually figure out how to do that with their backlighting, but right now it's still the same. In terms of keyboard travel, this is going to be on the shallow side compared to, say, the Razer Blade or Razer Blade Pro. Now, I don't have much of a problem with that. I really like their keyboards, and I have no issue with this device itself. It's good for typing on. Flanking that, of course, are the two top stereo speakers, very loud speakers. I've always loved how Razer puts those on top of the device. Sounds really fantastic, and you're going to get a good experience here as well. Finally, as announced with the mid-2017 version, you were getting a nice precision trackpad, so kudos to Razer for doing that. I hope to see that with the Razer Blade 14 as well. It's already in a Razer Blade Pro, so it seems pretty obvious they're going to do that at some point. But a very good trackpad. I also love the design here, blends in very nicely. Turning to the top of the device, nothing has changed. We are still that black all metal design here, which I think looks really handsome. I just love the design of the Razer Blade Stealth, but I'm still gonna be a little picky here, and this does pick up, fingerprint oil pretty easily, so you don't have to wipe this down frequently. You can put on a skin if you want to. I'm not a huge fan of putting skins on these kind of laptops with the curves. It's a little bit of a pain, but you may want to do that. Don't forget, if you do ever scratch this there, it's just gonna be metal underneath, so it'll show pretty easily. Then again, I guess a Sharpie marker could cover it up, but still, you may want to protect it. The overall design, though, is nice. It looks like, some people have said like an XPS 13 combined with a MacBook Pro, and they're probably not too wrong. But it's a nice balanced design. You get a nice little LED in the front to show you your battery life when it's charging. All right, let's take a closer look at the port. So here on the left side, you do have that USB Type-C. That is a full Thunderbolt 3. And of course, it is full 4 PCIe lanes. Razer's always done that, so you're going to use that with an eGPU, of course. It also charges the device, so no barrel charger, which is really nice, but that also means you only have one USB-C port on this device to charge and use ports if you want to do that. So you may need a port expander, but that's okay. You have a USB Type-A port on this side and one on the other side as well, and of course, a headphone jack. And spinning around to the right-hand side, you do have that other USB Type-A port and an HDMI 2.0A port for display out. And turning to the bottom, you get this nice rubber feet here, very clean design. You have an intake vent here and a fan over on this side, just a single fan. Very quiet system. Again, 8th generation processors have been very good for thermals and fan noise. It's going to be a very quiet device. You'll only hear that fan probably when you're doing a Windows update or if you're going to use it for gaming. But don't forget, you'll probably get a lot of that with the eGPU anyway. Stays cool to the touch. You do have screws here. Very easy to remove this panel. You can pop it off. The only thing you can really swap out though will be that SSD. So if you want to put in more storage, you can do that, but you won't be able to change out the RAM or the Wi-Fi card or anything else. So you're going to be kind of limited there. Okay, speaking of SSD, you have a few options here for storage, including 256, 512, or 1 terabyte options. Now, that is really the only configuration choices you have with the Razer Blade Stealth, as RAM is already set, as is the processor, although you can, of course, choose between the gunmetal and black versions for the chassis. Now, when it comes to the SSD, ours at least has a Samsung PM961 in there, which is actually very good. It's on the high end for a device of this nature. And when you get around 13 to 1400 read speeds and around 1200 to 1300 write speeds, which is very good. I'm very impressed with that. All right, let's talk a little bit about pricing. So this device starts at $14.99 for 256 gigabytes. That's, again, you're getting 16 gigs of RAM and the quad-core Core i7 processor. So definitely a little bit on the high end, but not too bad either, I suppose. Now it goes up to $1,700 for 512 gigabytes and up to $2,100 for the 1 terabyte option. Now, when it comes to competition, it depends what you're looking for in a laptop. Obviously, Dell and HP come to mind. HP has that new Spectre, which we recently reviewed, and I really like that device a lot. And Dell has the XPS 13, and they kind of have two models now. They actually have three if you count their 2-in-1. But let's just count the standard version. They have the older laptop that came out at the end of 2017, and their brand new one, which was just announced at CES and is now available as well. That one has an all-new design. You can get better battery life. I would say a better display there as well, and probably a better keyboard. So the XPS 13 may be the better buy. That also starts at about $1,000 because you have way more configuration options, including going down to a Core i5 processor. Okay, let's bring it all together. So I still like the Razer Blade Stealth. I know I'm biased, but the design and the experience with this device is just fun, and that's really all you can ask for in a laptop. Precision touchpad, great. Typing on it, awesome. Audio, very good display, and just a nice build quality and design here. I also like the port selection, so that checks all the right marks. Now, is it the best laptop on the market? No. Is it the cheapest? Definitely not. I would say HP and Dell both offer similar Ultrabooks for a lower cost point, or at least more configuration options that allow you to save some money where it's important to you. The HP Spectre is probably one of my favorite Ultrabooks on the market right now. We reviewed that recently. And Dell has the XPS 13, and they technically have two models now. They have the older one from 2017 and their brand new one, which was announced at CES, and both are very good options if you're into that design. Having said that, this is still, I think, a really good choice if you're willing to spend the money and maybe even get that Razer Core eGPU. It's a kind of fun combination. It's just not cheap. In a lot of ways, Razer is sort of like the Surface products. You're not really buying them for the actual price savings or cost savings. You're buying it because you just enjoy the experience and you like its design, and that's what you get here, and I can still recommend it. Now, having said that, I like to see some improvements. Throw in a fingerprint reader, Razer. Come on, it's 2018. Let's just get one going on the power button. It's not that hard. I'd also like to see those function keys light up and maybe some extra battery where they can. Overall though, the Razer Blade Stealth for late 2017 is a solid product if you're willing to pay for it. So there's a quick review of the brand new Razer Blade Stealth. That's the 8th generation version. Now, if you want our full review of the older model, which just had a different processor, make sure you click the link in the description below. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. For instance, the Razer Blade 14. Razer Blade 14 is... Yeah. It's a 45 watt chip. Oh. Got ahead of myself.